Hi, this is Ron Melk, producer and host of the Your Valuable Home podcast. This is one video in the re-release series of 5 videos, The Coolest Neighborhoods in America, that were researched and produced by me for Your Valuable Home in 2023 and 2024. Kevin Kennedy, whose image appears and whose voice is heard in this series, chose to leave Your Valuable Home at the end of 2024 to devote more time to his home improvement business. I will continue on as producer and host starting the 12th year of Your Valuable Home.
It's time for Your Valuable Home.
Okay, Ron, now it is time for our feature segment, and we're going to be continuing with the coolest neighborhoods in America.
Yeah, this is our second in the series of the coolest neighborhoods in America. We determined, largely on the basis of an enduring historical architectural style. Doing total 5 neighborhoods, the second one. I can tell you the homeowners in all these places seem to have one admirable trait in common, and that is they're passionate about their homes and their neighborhoods. It's really palpable. Let's go to neighborhood number 2, and that's Medford Lakes, New Jersey. I've been to Medford Lakes many times. My cousin lives in that area. It's a magical place. It's blessed with a park-like setting and boasts a large collection of log homes. So with us are Robert Burton, borough manager, and Lou Cobb, Medford Lakes unofficial historian and photographer, both of whom are longtime residents of Medford Lakes. I bicycled the streets of Medford Lakes not long ago with my cousin and my significant other, Rosemary, and we came upon a lakeside house where Rosemary spent her summer weekends with her aunt and uncle. She did that as a child. We enjoyed a fascinating afternoon with the latest owner who was in the middle of renovations, doing a great job, too. It was this experience that sparked the idea for the series, The Coolest Neighborhoods in America. Medford Lakes is definitely one of the coolest that I've been to. So, Robert, can you give us a geographic fix on the location of Medford Lakes Borough and when the borough was formed?
Yes, and thanks for having me. I appreciate the time. Interesting story. We're in the southwest area of Burlington County in what would be considered South Jersey. And the idea of Medford Lakes was in the works long before we became a borough in 1939, but around the 1929 time is when this magical place started to kind of grow. But we were incorporated into a borough in 1939.
And how many lakes are there with Medford Lakes?
There are 22 lakes in Medford Lakes, but I should preface that by saying anybody who's been to North Jersey, the lakes up there are substantially larger than the ones down here. So our 22 lakes could probably fit into a couple of the bigger lakes in northern New Jersey.
I know there was a lot of cranberry farming down in that part of Jersey years ago. Were any of those lakes or anything nearby devoted to cranberry farming?
Not in Medford Lake specifically that I'm aware of. We are surrounded by cranberry bogs in this area. There's a huge amount of cranberry production down here, and it's kind of slowed down, I think, in certain areas, but nothing specific in Medford Lakes, but, a stone's throw in either direction would get you to a cranberry bog, and I've often been in the woods hiking and come across cranberry bogs that aren't even used anymore in the Pine Barrens.
The fact that Medford Lakes is deep in New Jersey's Pinelands National Reserve, that's got to be part of the uniqueness and appeal when people want to move there, right?
Yes, we're in the heart of the Pinelands. Our slogan is Medford Lakes in the Pines. It's quiet. You go out in the evening and I sit on my deck even when it's cold like this, and you can look up and see the stars and hear the wind kind of whistling through the pines. That's definitely part of the quaintness. I mean, you could get in your car or even a bicycle, to be honest with you, and ride in one direction and effectively be in the middle of nowhere.
I've actually done it. And it gives you a good feeling to be there. It's a good vibe to it. What is the current resident population of Medford Lakes?
We're just under about 4,500 people, that would consist of about 1,500 homes.
And how many are still made of log today?
The original kind of historic district, which is where everything started, probably 85 to 90% of the homes that are in that area are still original log, or what we would call like a mock log or like a half log. And then as the community grew from there, the particular trail that I live on was built in 64 and is not a log home. So as they kind of expanded out from the original footprint, newer and more modern materials were used kind of after that.
There could have been different choice of materials at the time. What actually ignited the whole log idea?
Well, I think the availability of wood in the area and the quaintness of a log cabin. I think, Leon Todd, the kind of founder of Medford Lakes, looked at, hey, listen, this is kind of a summer playground. And when you get out into the woods and it has a woodsy feel and you have these small, quaint log cabins, of course, back in that time, you didn't have really sprawling mansions or anything like that. These were fairly small log homes that at first people actually didn't even live year round. It was more of like a summer retreat type of a place. But I think he keyed in on something that everybody, when they see a log cabin, there is a feel to that, a hominess to it, surrounded by beautiful pines and lakes and things like that. And I think that was the drive behind it.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Lou, there was a hotel there. I don't think it's there anymore, made of logs, right?
Yes, the Log Cabin Hotel, which ultimately became Settlers Inn in either the late 70s, early 80s. But the Log Cabin Hotel is where we actually stayed when we moved to Medford Lakes in 1965. They had little rooms at the top. A fascinating place to stay overnight, and then it was, after that, just a restaurant. They had some crafters lofts that took over the hotel rooms. But Settlers Inn was just a restaurant for a number of years before it burned down in 1998.
So there's no hotel there now?
No, it was replaced by P.J. Whalehan's. The lot was vacant for a few years, and I believe around '03 or '04 is when P.J.'s went in there.
Bob, I think I've seen pictures of your administrative offices for the borough. Aren't they in a log structure?
They are. It's a newer building. It was 2007. Prior to that, it was the original log structure that housed Leon Todd's office and the police station. Unfortunately, it was not in great shape, and ultimately, we weren't able to save it. There was some additions that were put on and some other little things, and it was a cool building, the original municipal cabin, but unfortunately, as many things, they deteriorate to the point where they can't be repaired. So this building was put up, and this is a log building. And I should also point out that PJ's is also a log building. So the PJ's Whalehan's that sits where Settlers Inn was, that was required to be replaced when Settlers Inn burned down. You know, whoever was going to go into that property had to put a log up. That was part of the ordinance of Medford Lakes, that had to be replaced by a log building. PJ's did a pretty nice job. It's a nice building.
When did Medford Lakes become a year-round community? Did you mention that?
It was incorporated in '39. In the mid to late 40s, and Lou will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was around that time that you had small houses popping up that people were staying here, year round. Just a kind of a quick side note, back almost 20 years ago, there was a barber in downtown Medford who I used to go to all the time, and he was an old timer. And he said, growing up in the early 50s, I think he said, you knew how many people were living in Medford Lakes. He said there was like 5 or 6 people because you could tell by the smoke from their chimneys in the wintertime.
How about that?
And he said, no, I think there wasn't any more than 4 or 5 people that lived up there. And that was when Stokes Road was a dirt road, even downtown Medford. And looking back at those stories from him, it was pretty funny to hear that there wasn't that many people. But I think with the oil heat and things like that, people started staying year round, I would say somewhere probably in the 50s. Would you say that's about right, Lou?
I think that's true. There was a dramatic change in that decade. You think about 1957 when the first school was opened, Tacoma School, and then NITA was constructed in 1961. So there was a lot of change during that decade.
Can you give us a sense of how the log homes were built? I think it's fascinating. They're fascinating to see. They're fascinating to see the inside of.
They're traditional type log homes. They used cedar. Some of them used pine. Obviously, cedar has kind of a natural repellent to insects and things like that. So if you could get that, that was good to get. But a lot of them were made with pine, and they were, Lincoln log type structures. A lot of stuff you see in the Midwest are Scandinavian type logs that are flattened on the top and bottom, so they fit right together. Most of the logs in Medford Lakes were put together, and the gaps were filled with chinking, which is a cement type of material that, from what I understand, early on was a mixture of ash and water and other types of material that helped it bind together. And then those crevices were filled with chinking, so that way, you didn't have gaps in your wall.
But it had to be somewhat of an insulator too, right?
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because, there's 2 schools of thought on it. A lot of people have log homes and they go, oh, they're great. They're cool in the summer and they're warm in the winter. And then there's some people that say they're drafty, and I think it all comes down to maintenance. If you upkeep it and do what you need to do and, love your home, so to speak, I think they're fine. The chinking keeps the wind out. And one of the negatives, I think, if you have to point to one, is obviously closet space and things like that. When you're building a log home, very much like back in the 1800s, those were luxuries that were not put into floor plans, closets and things like that.
Isn't there synthetic chinking today?
Yes, it's actually a company, not that I'm trying to get any proceeds from Permachink, but that's the main company out there that they sell a flexible type of a chinking material which interestingly enough is what we used on our building here, a municipal cabin, that flexes with temperature, because there is a certain amount of expanding and contracting, wood does, especially over the course of the first, several years. Regular chinking can start to crumble and fall out. So the synthetic chinking has really made the maintenance on log cabins, I think, a lot easier. It looks pretty good, but there are still the purists that say, nope, I'm using regular chinking.
Those people still live in Medford Lakes?
Sure. Yeah, there's people that use synthetic, and there's people that say, nope, I'm doing it the way the old timers did it.
The old ways are the best ways, yeah. How many of the original log homes are still occupied in Medford Lakes today?
It's hard to say. I would say it's got to be 85 to 90%. Looking at old pictures, and Lou is a treasure trove of pictures, everything Medford Lakes. You can see log cabins that have been here in the 40s and 50s from some of the photographs. Now, some have deteriorated to the point where they had to be taken down, but I would think it's in the 85 to 90%, wouldn't you, Lou?
I agree. It would be somewhere in that ballpark, yes.
Isn't your concentration of log homes one of the greatest in America?
That's the rumor, this side of the Mississippi. I think it helps that we're only 1.2 square miles. That probably helps our numbers a little bit. Supposedly it is the highest concentration of log homes this side of the Mississippi. And I have not heard of any other concentration of log homes more on the other side of the Mississippi, for that matter. So
I can't imagine that there are a lot of them out there yet. Of course, the country. If I wanted to build a log home in Medford Lakes today, is there available land, number one? And are there contractors in the area who know log home construction?
We're basically built out. There is no lots to really be had here. There may be one or two small parcels of land that have some other things that are attached to them that can make it difficult. But for the most part, if you were moving to Medford Lakes and you wanted to build a log home, your best bet would probably is find maybe a home that is not a log home, that's older, that you could kind of retrofit and do it that way. I can tell you that there are builders in town that have done tremendous work on existing logs as far as expanding them, making them slightly larger, because you do have to remember this was a summertime vacation areas. I would say by and large, most of the original log cabins here were smaller. They were not 2022 type standards of living that people look for now. A lot of people have purchased some of these older log cabins and expanded them to, have an addition of some type with bedrooms or a master suite or anything similar to that. And there are builders that I can tell you, one particular builder in town did an addition on a house, and when I came out, I could not tell where the original log cabin was and the extension, the addition was. It was that seamless of a job that you couldn't even tell.
Yeah, that was exactly the situation I described in the intro to this piece, where my significant other, we went back, we found this house where she used to go as a little girl, and he was replacing some logs, and there was an addition in that house that made it pretty huge, actually, and it looked just like the original. What is the Medford Lakes experience? What's it like to live there?
I'll let Lou take that one first, because he has been here a lot longer than me, and I don't want to give your age away, Lou. I apologize. But, we've been friends for 15, 20 years almost.
Something like that.
Yeah, and he was here before that, so go ahead.
Well, I sort of give my age away by saying that we moved here in 1965, and I was in 7th grade, so you can figure that out. But it's a remarkable town. It's interesting that my mother was in real estate for 40 years in this area, but my father found the house, and they both fell in love with it immediately because of its uniqueness, its small-town flavor, its all of the attractions that most people that live here today and those that have moved away will say it is the most idyllic setting to raise a family. There's just so many activities. We're close to major cities, Philadelphia, New York, an hour's drive from the Jersey Shore. But there's so much to do right here that you don't really need to leave. I mean, you can vacation, as Leon Todd established back in the 1920s, and have a wonderful experience right here. We made reference to Canoe Carnival earlier. Canoe Carnival started back in 1928, and we just had the 90th event this past summer. It's hard to explain. I've tried to do that before. You really need to go on YouTube and type in Medford Lakes Canoe Carnival to really see what it's all about. But in essence, it's building floats on 2 canoes or 1 canoe and paddling around our largest lake, Lower Etna. Sports is phenomenal here. We have a building that I've often referred to as the world's greatest little sports arena is Vaughn Hall. And the kids are just getting started with basketball. So that goes on for a couple of months. There's spring sports, fall fall activities. We have the fall festival. We have every year the school events that go on, that like the 8th grade dance that you wouldn't see in any other town. I could go on and on. There's just so much that makes Medford Lake special. And in so many ways, it hasn't changed in the 57 years that I have been here, where small town America has continued to thrive and in many respects has not changed. And that's what makes it so special.
And I'll add to that with summer camp. Summer camp really hasn't changed. That's something that has gone on here for eons, where there's all kinds of activities. Kids ride their bikes to school here. That's another biggie. We don't have busing here. The Iron Men and women, I should say, of Medford Lakes ride their bikes year round. I mean, there's kids that you'll see them in the snow because they won't be able to say they rode their bikes to school every single day of that particular year. But yeah, so there's no busing. And I'm looking out the window of my office right now, looking on Ballinger Lake and looking at the Lions Christmas tree that was just put in here a couple weekends ago. That is a tradition. That's a fantastic tradition. When you ride down Stokes Road, leaving Medford and entering Medford Lakes, the first thing you see on your right-hand side is a beautiful lit Christmas tree.
The Christmas tree, yeah.
In the middle of a lake. Yeah, I mean, that sums it up too.
And that's a great tradition. The lighting of the tree that Rob just referenced, that happened back earlier in the month, and it's a community event. People came out, and Rob read "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" to the kids, and then we went outside and lit the tree, and then Santa Claus arrived on a fire truck and was greeted enthusiastically, naturally, by all the town's children. Santa rides around all over town, up and down every trail, 4 or 5 hours, and the kids can run out and see Santa on the back of a fire truck. Great tradition.
When you say trails, a lot of your streets there have Indian names, don't they?
From what I understand, it was the Lenape Indians that were primarily in this area. If you really start going back, there's a great book by author, last name is McPhee, about the Jersey Pine Barrens. He goes into some detail about sections of Chemung that actually had an Indian reservation that was Indian Mills was the section of the town, which is literally right up the road. You could walk there in 25 minutes. And I think Leon Todd understood the uniqueness of the town. You know, there were native tribes from the Lenape Indians that lived in this area, frequent in this area. Naming 99% of the trails after Indian tribes, I think, was great. It pays honor to those indigenous people, you know, all over the country. I mean, obviously we have a lot of trails, and not all those particular tribes were local. Yeah, but I think even when you go right down to the logo of the town is an arrowhead. The Colony Club, which is effectively, I don't want to say homeowners association because that's so much bigger than what it is, but that would be the only way to describe it to people that don't live in Medford Lakes. But the Medford Lakes Colony Club, their logo was also an arrowhead. So we're certainly fond of the trail names and proud of it.
You're right. Homeowners Association, it does not adequately describe what you've got going on there. And it's something that I've experienced in putting the series together here in Philadelphia, in Pasadena, California, with Bungalow Heaven, is this very special feeling about the community and pride in the community and involvement in the community that I think there's a need for more of across the United States. And your community, Medford Lakes, just exudes that to me. I think you also have a log church there, don't you?
Yes, there were technically 2 churches here. There's Cathedral in the Woods, which just made it on the National Historic Registry, I believe, in 2020. And prior to that, I think 10 years before that, St. Mary of the Lakes Original Church, which is now, I believe, owned by the Protestant Church, when St. Mary's built a new church in Medford Township in the 70s, I want to say. But that building is also on a National Historic Registry. Lou, if you want to add anything to that, you probably know a little bit more about that than me.
The phenomenal church is also adjacent to Leon Todd Memorial Park, which was constructed back in 2011 on the 10th anniversary of 9/11. And it's really something to experience and to visit for people that come to town and stay with relatives and friends, or just if you live here. And we have a ceremony there every year, and it's adjacent to the church. And it's quite moving. And Rob mentioned the arrowhead. There's the shape of an arrowhead that's right in the middle of this memorial. It's really an incredible park that everybody here really appreciates.
The aerial shot of it, you can see the arrowhead if you look at an aerial shot of it. It's beautiful.
I can tell you for a fact, my cousin, she's moving. Her husband died about a year ago, and she's moving to a smaller house, and she loves Medford Lakes. She absolutely, they're right on the edge of Medford Lakes, across from the golf course. You have your own onboard golf course there too, which is another plus, I think.
That's right.
And she wants to stay in Medford Lakes. So I think you suggested a realtor for me, and I passed that on to her. So listen, this has been absolutely fascinating to me. It was fascinating putting together. Lou, thank you very much. Thank you for all your help. Thank you for your expertise, and thank you, too, for living in Medford Lakes. It sounds like a beautiful place to be to me.
It is indeed. Thank you both.
Please feel free to share your home improvement experience or your home improvement horror story with Your Valuable Home. Email me, Ron Milk, producer and host, at yourvaluablehome.net.